The king and his painful feet. Once upon a time, there was a king who ruled a prosperous country. One day the king went on a journey, and when he returned to the palace, he complained that his feet were very painful, because it was the first time he had to go on such a long journey, and the road he walked was very rough. Then the king ordered all the roads in the country to be covered with leather. This resulted in the need for thousands of cowhides and a huge amount of money. One day, the wife of the king's servant bravely asked the king, "Why are you spending such a large amount of unnecessary money? Why don't you use a small piece of leather to cover your feet?" The king was surprised, but then he agreed to make a pair of shoes. The lesson here is that to have a happy life, a happy place to live, you better change yourself. Your thoughts. Your heart should change, not the whole world should change with you, because if you change, the whole world will change. Then your life will be much happier. Hopefully, the story that 1000K sharing told above will help you live happier. Simply from your thoughts, actions, the way you perceive the problem has changed your feelings. How you accept the problem is the important thing to help your life go in a more positive, more joyful, and happier direction. The first sandal walker. Long ago, in a time when humans still wandered barefoot across wild landscapes, there lived a curious young hunter named Aru. Aru lived in a warm, dry land filled with jagged rocks, scorching sands, and thorny bushes that punished every step. Like everyone else in his tribe, he endured the pain, until one day something changed. On a particularly hot day, Aru went deeper into the valley than ever before. By noon, the ground was so hot it seared his feet. As he limped into the shade of a large tree, he noticed a piece of bark that had fallen from the trunk, shaped somewhat like the bottom of a foot. An idea sparked in his mind. He took the bark, wrapped it with dry reeds, and tied it around his feet using strips of vine. They felt awkward at first, but as he walked, the pain was gone. The sharp rocks? No match. The heat? Bearable. The thorns? Harmless. Aru had unknowingly created the first pair of sandals. When he returned to his village, others laughed at his strange foot bark. But after watching him move effortlessly across the terrain, curiosity turned to admiration. Soon, everyone was crafting their own versions using leather, woven grass, and animal hides. And so, the simple idea of protection and innovation gave birth to one of humanity's most lasting inventions. From pharaohs to farmers, soldiers to surfers, sandals would walk through history on millions of feet, thanks to one curious step taken by a boy named Aru. The first sandals were invented 26,000 years ago. The first protective footgear for humans may have been simple, but it certainly predated Nike. Researcher Eric Trinkhaus of Washington University in St. Louis says the first sandals designed to do more than just cushion the feet were invented around 26,000 to 30,000 years ago in Eurasia. But no such shoes have survived. However, Trinkhaus studied anatomical evidence from prehistoric humans and found a decrease in the strength of the little toes in Paleolithic humans. I found that the little toe bones of ancient humans were less robust than those of their ancestors, while the foot bones remained large and large. The only logical explanation is that there was a type of sandal, Trinkhaus says. When walking barefoot, the little toe is often pulled back to keep the metatarsal bones strong. The clothing worn on the foot will reduce the role of the little toe, and thus weaken it. History of shoes. There is much evidence that the invention of footwear was one of the first inventions of mankind. During hunting or moving to find shelter, our ancestors had to find ways to protect their feet from rough, rocky terrain and hot sand. The history of human development has proven that people soon realized the importance of protecting their feet. Documents about the Egyptians, Chinese, and other ancient civilizations all mentioned shoes. Shoes are also mentioned a lot in the Bible, and the Jews often used shoes in some special cases related to legal matters or trading transactions. Shoes often appear in the folklore of many different peoples. Even today, shoes still appear in the stories that we often read. The wonderful stories of the seven-legged shoe, Mercury's winged slippers, Puss in Boots, Cinderella, and many others are fairy tales that we sometimes forget, but children love. Shoe throwing after marriage is one of many traditions where shoes are used as a lucky charm. Originally, shoes were simply woven grass or rawhide attached to the foot. In the remains of ancient Egyptians, some types of footwear were woven from papyrus leaves decorated very artistically and beautifully. Records show that making sandals became a very popular art in the history of this country. Sandals are still widely used in countries with warm climates. The shape and decoration are influenced by the environment and people's aesthetics. In some countries, sandals are simply worn as they were originally intended, while in many other countries, people pay attention to creating shapes and decorations to serve people with high aesthetics and wealth. For the Japanese, the shape of the sandals shows the social status of the wearer. There was a great difference between royalty, merchants, and artists. In fact, the distinction was clearly evident in the professions. The Greeks focused on design and aesthetics, while the Romans invented the field sandal, which allowed their legions to fight all over the world. In the era of the wealthier empires, the sandal became more aesthetically pleasing, often decorated with gold and precious stones. Maca shoes are used in countries with cold climates. The characteristic of this type of shoe is the creased seams that form a small groove at the toe of the shoe. The rest hugs the ankle. This special sewing style also appears on the shoes of people in cold countries such as American Indians, Eskimos, etc. Shoes have always held an important position in clothing. Until recent years, there were still many types of shoes designed for special events. Among them, there were pairs that were designed and decorated very elaborately, emphasizing the importance and difference from the main outfit of the wearer. This whole period of development shows that people did not care much about the quality and utility of a pair of shoes. When the rulers controlled the craft in Europe, they were more concerned with the perfection of workmanship and style, forgetting the aspects of protection and comfort. Among the oddball shoe types was the Krakow shoe, a shoe with a very pointed and long toe, which was difficult if not impossible to walk in, and which was outlawed by the law. The duck toe followed in the Elizabethan period, and the law also had to stipulate that the maximum width of the toe was 51.2 inches. Innovators continued to inherit and develop these odd shoe designs. In the late 1850s, most shoes were made with flat, straight soles, with no distinction between the left and right shoe. Breaking with tradition to create a new type was not simple. There were two layers to a shoe, a base layer to create a super thin shoe, and a piece of leather that the shoemaker placed on the toe to create the necessary space for the foot, if the shoe was to look fuller and more solid. It was not until 1850 that shoes were made with hand tools such as those used in Egypt in the 14th century BC. The curved awl, the knife-like chisel, and the razor were part of the shoemaker's toolkit. These tools had been created 33 centuries ago, with only a few tools added at this time: pliers, hammers, sandpaper, and stone blocks to finish the edges and soles. Many attempts were made to develop and manufacture shoemaking machines. All failed until American shoemakers succeeded in inventing the first shoemaking machine. In 1845, the first machine was put into use, a rolling machine that replaced the hammer and stone blocks used by craftsmen to flatten leather, a method used to increase strength by compressing the fibers. Then, in 1846, Elias Howe invented the sewing machine. This invention sparked an explosion of research and development activities like never before. Today, in the shoemaking industry, machine production has not replaced hand production. In 1858, Lyman R. Blake, a shoemaker, invented a machine that sewed from the sole to the toe of a shoe. Gordon Mackay later bought the patent from Lyman R. Blake and developed it. The shoes made with this machine were called Mackays. During the Civil War, many shoemakers were drafted into the Army, causing a severe shortage of both military and civilian shoes. The Mackay shoe machine was used extensively to alleviate this shortage. Even after Mackay had perfected the machine, he found it difficult to sell them. However, when he was about to give up because he had spent all his savings, he came up with a new plan. He approached the shoemakers, who laughed at the idea of making shoes with a machine, but who also needed to increase production. He told them that he wanted to put the machine into their factory, and in return, they would pay him a portion of the added value of each pair of shoes the machine produced. Mackay issued royalty stamps, representing the payments made on the machine made. This method of introducing machines gradually became accepted in the industry. There were two important reasons for this success. First, the machines were available to shoemakers without the need to spend large sums of money. This meant that shoemakers did not have to invest in or develop machines that enabled them to produce new styles of shoes that were very popular. Second, this developed a service that was of great value in the shoe industry and other industries. This unique service developed in the shoe industry long before it was introduced to other industries. Mackay quickly realized that in order to ensure payment for the use of these machines, they had to be kept running. A machine that didn't work wouldn't make Mackay any money. So he manufactured replacement parts, then organized and trained a team of experts and sent them out to replace and repair broken machines. In 1875, what would become known as the Goodyear sewing machine was invented, which could produce a variety of shoes. It was used to make both soleless and soled shoes. These machines were developed under the direction of Charles Goodyear, Jr., the son of the famous inventor, who had invented the vulcanization process for rubber. Following Mackay and Goodyear, many auxiliary machines were born and linked together. Research was more vigorous than ever. Perfecting a shoemaking machine required a large sum of money, perhaps up to $1 million, as well as patience and tireless effort. Inventors were always looking for ways to mechanize manual operations that no machine could do. We have come a long way from the days of the pincer, a simple combination of a clamp and a lever. For centuries, this was the sole tool a shoemaker had to shape the shoe, with the help of his fingers and nails. A little over a century ago, a single person could only make a few pairs of shoes in a long day. Today, with the Goodyear welt, 200 pairs can be produced in just 8 hours.